Well, we're using it across all sectors. We have a GIS council that is about 11 years old, and on that council are representatives from transportation, from agriculture and commerce. So it's really a technology that's used across all sectors. Of course, most predominantly in our emergency management area. We have used it recently. We've had multiple tornadoes that have come through the state, and we've used the collector to do on-site field collections of damages, that kind of thing. So we're a big agriculture state too. And so GIS is used in our agricultural industry as well. So I think it's fairly pervasive across many of the industries that we have in our state. We are a rural state, and so in this digital economy, access to bandwidth is incredibly important. And so GIS was used extensively to map those points and really kind of ferment a policy conversation about where and how we should invest in order to have access to our schools, that kind of thing. So there's just a myriad of examples that really point toward the value of location-based data that we've used in the state. It's something that we're going to continue to grow into. I mean, I think there are some thought leaders that are in the agencies and in the departments. It's important because of so many of the things that make public sector work. Transparency of how tax dollars are spent, citizen engagement can be something that's very much more useful with that kind of data driving it. I think too there's a big push, and we're seeing it not only with spatial analysis, but just analysis of data, becoming sort of a real analytic entity to make the best decisions about how to spend public dollars. And I think this kind of technology and the full adoption of it is going to get the state where it needs to be. So it's like anything. It's like when online banking started and then the public sector began to offer services online. The private sector typically leads, and then typically governments really come in and leverage those kinds of technologies for efficiencies, for better decision making, to invest public dollars most wisely. We mapped all of the building assets that the state government controlled. And for the first time ever, our Bureau of Buildings was able to get their hands around what those assets were, to better utilize floor space and those kind of things across government. There is definitive ROI in doing those kinds of functions better, whereas before it would be what you'd expect, right? Either that big giant notebook or that spreadsheet that didn't quite get the job done. We saw examples at the conference here already, but I think we've turned the corner on using some of those technologies that way. And mapping the state's building assets was one of the ways that we've done that recently. Sort of that any device, any platform, anywhere. And I think that's the beauty of cloud. I think it's similar to shared, but I think it takes it to where there's a lot of agnostic kinds of decisions, regardless of the device you're using, regardless of you're at your desk or you're in the field. That's what cloud allows you to do. Really, one of the things that I liked, I mentioned about the open data, was sort of the consuming of those services, the ability to go out there with the new atlas that's available and consume all of these things that are in the cloud, and it makes so much more of a difference for what happens in the boundaries of the state of Mississippi. That's, I think, a very exciting time. So I think the technology stack in GIS, it was described as an enterprise with pieces and parts to it. But I think we're getting to a place where it's going to be more shared, and I think executives and others are going to see the value in it more so than they ever have. And that's what our jobs are, to help our policy, our elected officials and our policy leaders to have access to that kind of information when they're making decisions. And I think cloud's going to do that.